Hey everybody, this is a fascinating discussion. It's one of my favorite. I wrote a book called A Nation of Businesses, Building a Business in the Make It on Your Own Generation. I think one of the greatest epithets that someone could have is that they built something. Even if it's a Lego, which so many people, especially as they get older, enjoy building Legos and making these fantastic creations. There's a sense of pride and ownership and production in building something. That's what a business is. It's building something. And I think at the end, as we get older, we want to be able to say that we've created something, hopefully of value, hopefully of importance. And by doing so, we've left something that will be able to perpetuate at least what we believe. Businesses accomplish so much of that. General Electric was built over a century ago by one of the most famous people. And you look at some of the other businesses from Walmart, which was built by Sam Walton, and he believed that people should have a place to shop that doesn't cost a lot of money. Not cheap, but just doesn't cost a lot of money. That business became the largest retailer in the world at one time. And they built something that they believed in that espoused the values that they follow. As a result, that business not only has fulfilled some of the personal aspects that the person has, but has also, over time, instilled some values in other people who work there, provided, obviously, some economic benefit to families and the country. But most importantly, those values that are presented in certain businesses help prompt others to do the same thing. Work hard, be kind, give something back, make sure that you live within your means, pay your bills, invest in the future. All of those lessons, which we may call values, were created as certain individuals built a business from scratch and, as a result, created and left something of tangible worth, not just for themselves, but for others as well. Can we all do it? Absolutely. I have so many statistics about businesses, and two are my favorite. One is that 2 of every 3 millionaires became a millionaire because they owned a business. 2 out of every 3. Even those who made great incomes, for instance, as a doctor or an attorney, often they own their own business in addition to being a doctor or an attorney. But if you want to be a millionaire, owning a business is the way to go. And the second is that 80% of people in the United States who are millionaires made it on their own. That means, at least in this country, probably for others as well, if you want to make it, you can. It's not, as we'll find out throughout this presentation, it's not what you started with, it's what you ended with. It's not what you were born with, it's what you did with what you were born with. Important concepts. Businesses. Businesses start with, yes, an idea. Ideas are the foundations of a business. I want to make cupcakes, and I want to create a business that makes cupcakes because I can make cupcakes better than anybody else. That is a great concept. But you have to do something with it. Results matter. Results matter means that you've done something with what you had. It means that the idea is important, but so is the action. I've long said dreams are important, but so is determination. You can dream the right dream, but you have to be determined to achieve it. Those that start a business do have that singular idea. Exciting, hopefully. Ambitious, certainly. But they have that singular idea, but then they do something with it. It's the results that matter. Behind me, I have a sign that says results matter. Another saying that says dreams don't keep, something needs to be done about them. Not sure who said that, but it's a great line. So as we go to starting a business, so we have to really, at the fundamental level, foundational level, understand that ideas are important, but what you do with them are as important as well. As we look at, certainly the United States and other countries as well, they had this term called the rugged individual. It was, in some ways, defining the American dream. The American dream is a better standard of living than your parents, continually improving upon the way and manner in which you live. We found that over the past 2 centuries, that the United States has been fortunate to have a rising standard of living, the achievement of the American dream. We find it's harder today. But the defining characteristics of the defining period of the United States was this aspect of working hard, saving your money, persevering through any kind of obstacle, and then taking a risk. It created an economy that created industry after industry. If you go back in history, there's countries that at one time or another were preeminent in the world. Certainly over the last century, the United States has been at the preeminent position in the world. Whether it stays there in the future, who's to say? If we can all predict, boy, we would be in fortunate positions. But the United States was successful for a number of reasons. One is an abundance of natural resources, an abundance of land. But they also had an abundance of individuals who were unencumbered by a government of bureaucracy that prevented them from trying to attain their ideals, trying to attain their ambitions. So from medicines to autos and movies to computers, the United States led the world in the creation, promotion, manufacture, and sale of these products. During this time, as a result of businesses, which this presentation is about businesses and organizations and how they add to our overall value within an organization and within an economy and a country. As a result of businesses providing this economic foundation, we were able to see that life expectancies doubled within this century. The world's been fed. In fact, 86% of people in the world can now read or write. To see how quickly our standard of living has advanced, I often tell the story of Social Security. Social Security was passed in 1935 by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. And they came up with a figure that you would obtain some retirement benefits when you were the age of 65. And people ask, well, how did they get the age 65? They got the age 65 because most people didn't live to the age of 65. So they created a retirement system that the average person wouldn't ever enjoy. But now we see that life expectancies, just within that brief period of time, is now up to about 78 and 81 years old. As a result, we have employed generation after generations, millions upon millions. Yet, the scientific and technological innovations have been constructed in a way that hasn't benefited so much of our society today. And I'm talking about the employees. This is a nation of businesses that talks about creating a business. And as I mentioned about the book title, it said a nation of businesses creating a business in the make it on your own generation. Technology and globalization has advanced to the point that you can create and sustain a business often with few employees. Some years ago, a friend of mine and I went to Milwaukee. We went to see a Milwaukee Brewers game, and then we went in to see a Twins game, 2 baseball games, and also the Minnesota Vikings. We're sports fanatics. We went and saw one of the plants that made beer. Milwaukee's quite famous for their beer. I'm not a drinker, but I enjoyed going into the plant. It's amazing. They're producing thousands and thousands of cases of beer a day, yet you can count on your hands the number of people that were working in the plant, constructing, building, producing this beer. That's how much and how far technology has advanced to where we can have mass production of products with very few people. The result has been, just in the last couple of years, say 20 years, that 67% of people had a full-time job a little over 20 years ago. Now it's 63%. That may not sound like a lot, but 4%, when you deal with about 130 million jobs, is a considerable amount of money. In fact, if you look at all the contract and part-time jobs, not for anything but full-time, contract and part-time jobs, they're rising to about 50% by 2030. 50% of the people working in businesses and organizations today. We're seeing that robots are going to be producing about 7 trillion of work by 2055. It's a tremendous amount. Each robot replaces 6 people. And 6 of the 10 fasting jobs are now low-skilled jobs. Most of our jobs now are for the low knowledge, low skills. The higher wage, high knowledge is being taken over by robots and artificial intelligence. What does that mean? It means that for generations, for centuries, the United States advanced because they were able to build more, dream more, produce more. And that fulfilled the ambitions of millions of people, employees, who could obtain a good job, a middle-class job, what we call a solid middle-class job. And it produced stable environments for people to live in. Now what we're seeing is so many of these jobs are disappearing. In fact, what we're seeing today is what's often called the less rugged individual. 75% of people live paycheck to paycheck. Think about that for a second. If people lost their job today, they would be paid to pay their bills in the next couple of weeks. Part of it is because 3 out of every 10 employees, people, have no savings at all. None. And as a result, 35% of people who have a full-time job often also have a second job. Those statistics are sobering. 75% of employees are paycheck to paycheck. 3 in 10 have no savings at all. That's about the same, by the way, when people retire. About 30% of people have no savings when they retire. They're almost completely dependent on either some retirements or Social Security. And even if you do have a full-time job, which we know from the previous slide that so many of those full-time jobs are going away, even if you do have that full-time job, more than a third have a second job because that first job doesn't provide enough money. We need to learn and perfect the art and science of running our own business. Every person should learn and maintain that ambition because it's the small businesses that created the United States in the 18th century, and again it'll be the small business that recreates the U.S. in the 21st century. In a minute I'm going to give you some statistics, good statistics, sobering statistics. But the day when we could find an employer, an organization, find a business that's going to provide us with health care and retirement and a stable, secure job for the foreseeable future is done. Except for those who work for the government, which still offers some stability in employment, mainly because they have a stability of income. But outside of those jobs, you would be paid to find a job that has a reasonable expectation of being the job that you're going to have in 5, 10, certainly 15 years. We're moving much more towards a small business world. Small business, in fact, dominates the landscape. How much does it dominate? It's surprising for many to hear some of these statistics. There's 30 million small businesses. A small business, by the way, is a business that has less than 500 employees. In fact, if you added up all the business in the United States, all businesses, 99% of all businesses are small business. Amazing. We have 60 million people that are employed in small businesses. That's half of all employees. Now think about that for a second. Small businesses represent 99% of all businesses, and they employ half of all employees. That means that 1% of businesses, yes, they employ about 60 million people. So those 1% of those businesses are quite powerful. But when we go back to small businesses, if you notice it said there's 30 million small businesses and they employ 60 million people, that's because 80% of all businesses have no employees, or small businesses. 80%. 50% of those are operated from home. We are a nation of businesses. How important is business to the economy? 60%, a little over 60% of all jobs are created by small businesses. That's down to reason. You open a small business hoping to make a large business, whether it is doing taxes out of your home, or especially for some that really enjoy working with the environment, you open up some type of lawn mowing business. And it may be you and a lawnmower, but at some point you want to have more. Amazing. Amazing statistics about the power of small businesses. Growth in this economy, in this country, is nearly all, 3/4, promoted by small business. If a city, state, and the federal government want to promote hiring in our world, they do so by promoting small businesses. What does it take to make it? No surprise, working hard, being kind, and never giving up. I always talk about kindness because people go, kindness, how does that make money? It makes money because people enjoy doing business with you. People enjoy working with you. The great thing about a small business and why I admire those who build their own business is to use one's inherent talents and perfected skills to dream of something unique and then be determined to sell it, knowing success rests almost solely in one's ability to make it on our own is one of the most admirable ambitions anyone would ever embark upon. And that brings us to how to build your own business. I think there's 5 aspects that you need to concentrate on. As we often talk about with PowerPoints and presentations, we try to keep it to just a few because you can remember those. So I think there's 5 aspects that you need to concentrate on if you want to build your own business. First is to think of the impossible. The triumphant are led by often the most imaginative, like Walt Disney. Nothing seemed impossible to Walt Disney. Think of what that individual and those around him, including his wife, created and what they still create. His family built a museum in San Francisco. It's an amazing museum. His wife built a concert hall in LA. The generosity of spirit from that person, that family, continues with hardly any end in sight. Because he always believed that it could happen. He had this fervent desire, but also this inherent belief that it will work. It may not work in the manner in which we thought, may not work when we thought, but it will work. If you think of the impossible, you have to achieve the possible. That's the determination, right? There's talent with phenomenal intellect, yet also missed opportunities and unfulfilled expectations. So you have to have the right idea, but you have to take the chance to do something, to try anything, to make the impossible possible. Results matter. At some point, the rubber has to meet the road, as they say. Dreams don't pay the bills. What does pay the bills? The third aspect, making something that somebody wants. Success is almost solely achieved by making something that someone wants to buy. Disneyland exists because somebody wanted to buy it. That thought must be at the forefront of every single decision made in business. Who will buy it? It's great, it tastes great, looks great. Who's going to buy it? And as you determine that something that you want to make, then you have to find the superstar to make it, which is the fourth aspect. With international competition and outsourcing robots and artificial intelligence, it is that singular characteristic, that defining trait between the unemployed and the employed, is going to be their ability to utilize their mind in capacities that are foreign to most anyone else. It's the best and the brightest with an intellect and expertise in the workplace that dominates the business. Those are the individuals that we want. We call them superstars. The world doesn't need any more stars. They need superstars. Those that are going to command the truly great positions and incomes are those who have ideas, thoughts, perspectives, perceptions far beyond anyone else. And lastly, when you hire the right people, when you make something that somebody wants, when you achieve the possible, and even if you think of the impossible, in the end, you've got to build a business that people want to work with. People typically want to work with those who have ambitions far beyond just making money. They want to do business with people who they feel are going to advance the interests of those around them, whether it's their family, their community, their state, their country, or their world. Employees, in fact, want employers who value their contributions. Customers want to patronize a business who seeks more than just profit. And society wants businesses who give more than they take. As that saying says, it's fine to take, but you also have to know what to give. It's fine to take, but you also have to know what to give. No, you don't have to give out much or most, but you have to give back something. You're in business because their community supports what you do. And it's right, noble, and just, even fair, to give something back. Something. There's that great saying that says, it's perfectly acceptable to take, but it's perfectly responsible to give. And that's what makes this place just a little bit better. Again, it's perfectly acceptable to take. We live in a country that, unfortunately, in a world, in fact, that in some ways denigrates some that are successful, some that are rich. We know now that 80% of people made it on their own. Certainly there's people that are born on third base, as they say, and make it home. There's some people who are born on first base and make it home. There's people that are born on third base and never make it home. So it's not what you're born to, it's what you do with what you're born to and with. But we should be grateful and gracious to those who have made it, and learn the lessons that they followed that allowed them to make it, and then follow those lessons. Because that, again, is what makes this world just a little bit better, not just for us, but for those who came after us. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the day.